I decided after much procrastination to add a fish finder to my Epic V7. I just decided that actually it was more important to know what was below me when fishing, so it was just better to fit one after all. And there were other reasons for fitting a new one to my Stealth. So I've taken this one, which is a Garmin Stricker 4 CV Plus, something like that, in that, not necessarily that order. I've added this to the Epic. I'll quickly go through a few bits of what I've done. Firstly, I'd like to say that my wonderful sort of console thing here, bar that I had across here, I decided to remove, which improves the look of the thing no end. As well as that, it keeps a sort of, it's a more minimal look. I can also move the fish finder around a bit more. So I wanted to also say I've got that fish finder on a medium arm. I have got a rather heavy long arm, which might be quite good if my son was paddling this thing, because his feet will be back here, and the closer that is to him, the easier it is for him to use it. I've got a short arm as well, should I want to use that. But I reckon this probably will work well for me. So it's pretty minimal. I took the starport off the bit of Dexian and I've added to the side here, and that will be useful for cameras or other things, no doubt. But at least it's there. The cabling runs through a scan strut, so it's waterproof. You have to actually drill those two holes. They come with a blank, and they come with a couple or three rubbers with holes through the middle of them. But when you've got two wires going through, you've got to do it yourself, which is a bit of fun in its own way, because the rubber runs about all over the place and it's quite difficult to drill the holes. But anyway, so the transducer and all the wiring is in the back, or inside the hole here. So I drilled that, and I have, there's a huge amount of cabling in there, plus there's an adapter, because the transducer that I fitted has got an 8-pin plug, and this particular header unit requires a 4, so it comes with, you can see it now actually, there's the adapter. Just more weight, more rubbish to look after. I've spliced these wires together, so I've got a nice quick release connection. It doesn't really matter which type you use. I use the same type, I can't remember what they're called. They have one central thick, I'll show you, I suppose. There we go, that's what it looks like. The transducer is set in plumber's putty, which is probably duct seal. It may not be, but it doesn't matter. There's a whole lot of different types. Duct seal's American, which cost me a fortune to get over here. I've since found it advertised here, and you bought more. It's great stuff. The power is in the form of three lithium-ion 18650 batteries. That seems to work absolutely brilliantly. I've used it many times before. They don't give the longest of charges, but actually for what I want to do, that will keep me out for probably 4 or 5 hours, no problem at all. And I use a lock and lock box to do this. Oh, I should add, this at the moment does not have a fuse. There is a this should have a 3-amp fuse, but I have been told by, I can't remember who it was, someone to do with my one of my other fish finders, that was a 5-amp fuse that required, and they said they don't generally have power surges if you're going to have this kind of setup. So they said, you know, you don't need to put a fuse in there. However, I'm very likely to put one in just for safety, just to make sure. It is important that this is watertight, because if you get lots of water on these things, they can explode, and you don't really want that in the hull when you're a couple of miles offshore. When I should probably add, when I set this all up, putting the screws in here was really hard work. I ended up having to take this back out again in order to actually get my hands up there. It was so tight, and I scratched and scraped myself fairly trying to do it. I did consider using a different way of doing it, but as I had this type of plate, I just thought, well, you know, I had several of those, so it was easier just to bolt it all through. I have actually on the back of the header unit, this is a stick-on pad, and I could have done the same down here, but they're not that cheap, and I thought, well, as I've got all the other stuff, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So this is then stuck onto the epoxy. I am going to lather lots of these electrical connectors in grease of one sort or another. There is silicone dielectric compound grease is what I'm using. So I shall do that. I shall probably put some duct seal around these connectors as well, because this potentially is going to get waves hitting it, possibly full on, but certainly it is going to get affected by salt water. But the more I can shroud this in protection, the better. Right, what I've done is I've taken this other fish finder I'm going to use off the other kayak, and I have scored using quite abrasive sandpaper the back of here. So what I'm going to do is fill this up with epoxy resin. I'm going to use this here, which is duct seal or similar. It's the stuff you get around stainless steel sinks when you're fitting them into a kitchen surface. I will make up a side of that, and then I can make it flush all the way around here for a stick-on ram ball mount. So here it is. You can see that it's all higher than the ridge around there, so that should work okay. I've shaped it a little bit with a screwdriver just so that it's stuck well. Hope to God it's going to be alright, but I think it will be. So I will mix up some epoxy resin, pour that in and let it set. Right, this has now gone off. This is nice and hard, so I'm going to try and take this off one-handed, and if it doesn't work, oh no, this looks alright. Here we go. And then I'm going to have to tidy it up, which I can't obviously do one-handed. Oh, it smells lovely. That's lovely. Right, so that's what it's looking like. Nice flat surface. Slight ripple on this ridge here, but it'll be absolutely fine. There we go. I shall tidy this up, and then I'm going to stick this to it, so that will go on there quite nicely, and then we should be good. So I wanted to show you this. So this was all filed down. So this is my epoxy that I put on the back of the fish finder. I then stuck this, and I've left it over 24 hours. I think, or have I left it just under 24 hours? Anyway, about that, and at the moment it certainly seems alright. There is enough depth here that actually if this failed, I reckoned I could drill through here and add some screws, self-tapping screws, or put some nutserts in there, probably very small ones, short ones, and screw this rather than stick it. Let's hope it all works out, and well, we'll find out with time, won't we?